Hello everybody and welcome to another video, and today I'm going to be looking at a band I have heard of before, but as far as I know I've never actually heard any of their music. I'm going to be looking at Job for a Cowboy. Now this is a band name I have heard batted around for quite a while, but it's not a band I've never actually decided to check them out for some reason. I don't know why. But I have never knowingly heard any of their music, so having not actually checked out the band before, as is my norm, I decided to find out a little bit more about the band. And what I can tell you is Job for a Cowboy is an American death metal band from Glendale, Arizona. I did not know they were a death metal band. The name doesn't really suggest that, does it? But anyway, it was formed in 2003, with the band's debut album Genesis being released in 2007. That peaked at number 54 on the US Billboard 200, selling 13,000 copies within its first week of release. The second album, 2009's Ruination, sold 10,600 copies, so it didn't actually do quite as well. That was in the United States, and that was in its first week as well, and debuted at number 42. So it debuted higher, but didn't sell as much, somehow. The band comprises of vocalist Johnny Davey, guitarist Tony Sanicandro, and Al Glassman, and bassist Nick Shenzalis. Davey is the only remaining founding member, apparently. The band has played in international music festivals including Sounds of the Underground, Download Festival, Mayhem, Summer Slaughter, Grass Pop Meeting, and Wacken Open Air. So there you go. So they've been around for a good 20 years now, 21 years. Like I said, the name of the band never actually suggested to me that they were a death metal band. But it might also be the name of the band that never really inspired me to check them out for some reason. I don't know. So anyway, we're going to be looking at a track of theirs called The Agony Seeping Storm. Now, I think this was suggested by someone a couple of weeks ago. So, yeah, I'm intrigued to check these out, because like I said, heard of them before, never checked them out, had no idea what kind of music they were. So, hearing that they're a death metal band kind of piques my interest. And, yeah, so I have a kind of idea what to expect, being that it's death metal, but overall I generally don't know what to expect. So we'll just jump into this and see what we've got. So, this will be The Agony Seeping Storm by Job for a Cowboy. Let's have a look.
Never stole the soul.
Right, there's a hell of a lot to take in there. I'm not sure what to make of that video. That was a bit odd. I mean, what? Now, musically, it's a very interesting piece of music, because when the actual piece of music starts out, it sounds very thrashy. Like right at the beginning, it sounds a very, very thrashy sort of piece of music. But then, of course, it goes into the more sort of death metal sounding riffs later in the piece of music. And vocally, especially within the first few opening lines, but the vocal style reminds me a lot of Danny from Cradle of Filth. Which is interesting. You know, just the sort of pitch of the voice predominantly, but there's also something about the phrasing that's used in the vocals as well. You know, the way the lines are, you know, the actual cadence of the line, the phrasing of the lines, it reminds me very much of Danny Filth's writing as well. So it's a very intriguing piece of music for me. I mean, why they came up with the name Job for a Cowboy for this band, I don't know, because the name just doesn't really fit with the actual style of the music, in my opinion. It just... because, like I said, the name Job for a Cowboy never really inspired me to check out the music. It doesn't sort of grab my attention. But the actual music itself was brilliant. You know, it was fast, it was frenetic, it was impactful. You know, the vocal performance was brilliant. The musical performance, again, was brilliant. It was a very interesting musical experience, because, like I say, you know, it starts off thrashy. There's the sort of death metal elements throughout the entire piece of music, but there's also maybe a sort of hint of technical, possibly even a little bit of prog in there as well. You know, especially there was like some very technical bass riffs in there that you could hear, and the bass, again, you could actually hear the bass quite well. And I've mentioned this many times before, that I think the bass guitar is a very underappreciated instrument. You know, in a lot of music, the bass sort of tends to get drowned out. It tends to end up sort of hiding in the background. I mean, you'd notice if it wasn't there, but it's never really a sort of dominant sound within the overall musical experience. But the fact you can actually hear the bass quite clearly in a lot of this track, you know, is something I quite enjoy, because I do love the sound of a good bass riff. So it's a very interesting piece of music. And, you know, the video, like I say, it was a bit of a confusing one, because there's this guy in what appears to be his apartment, apparently drugged out of his mind, crawling through tunnels. Then this weird sort of thing bursts out of his body. Then this weird sort of distorted, mutated creature appears to be holding a brain or something. And then at the end, a baby is born. I mean, what the hell? And I mean, the actual title of the song, Agony Seeping Storm. I've got no idea. I really don't know. I couldn't honestly say what the song is about from like the brief, from the trying to read the lyrics and trying to watch the video and hear the music at the same time. You know, it's very hard to concentrate on all three, because there was a lot going on, and you know, the actual vocals, the lyrics were coming at you quite fast. You know, there were moments where it sort of slowed down, but for the most part, it was quite fast. And it goes, as above, so below, as within, so without, as the universe, so the soul. Now, the as above, so below is it's a phrase from an old writing. I think it comes from something called the Emerald Stone or the Emerald Tablet or something like that. The phrase as above, so below. And I mean, that's been used in many different things. And as far as I recall, it's got something to do with like it's like the cause and effect sort of thing. You know, the effect of the sun and the moon on the earth sort of thing. You know, the the moon affects the tide, the sun affects life, that sort of thing. I think that's what it refers to. I can't remember. So it's like cause within, and it says as above, so below, as within, so without. So what you feel inside perhaps affects the world around you. As the universe, so the soul. So again, that could be the world at large, not necessarily the planet, but the universe at large affects your overall being. That sort of thing. That could be what that's saying. I'm not sure. I find myself infectiously waiting for a glimpse at the dismal sun, but instead possessed by my shadow from the moonlight as the night begun. I find myself infectiously waiting for a glimpse at the dismal sun. Is that, looking for hope? I find myself wanting to find hope. Infectiously waiting for a glimpse at the dismal sun. I find myself anxiously waiting and hoping to see a ray of sunlight, to see a glimmer of hope. But instead, I'm possessed is my shadow from the moonlight as night has begun. So instead of seeing the glimmer of hope that he's looking for, he finds himself in the dark and sort of transfixed by the dark and hypnotised by it and sort of drawn into it. I don't know. My now mutating silhouette to swell and embody a monolith which seeps agony. It rains a bubbling storm with thousands of eyes agazed, spellbound by its stagnancy. I have no idea. An intoxicating froth spews below its... I cannot talk. An intoxicating froth spews below its mist, igniting a delicate illumination. The overseers are drugged from a god adrift, from my unforeseen creation. I don't know. I honestly don't know. Normally when I'm reading like lyrics of a song, I can generally pluck something out of it. I can sort of maybe come up with some sort of idea as to what the lyrics might mean, but these ones have got me completely baffled. I'll be completely honest. I have no idea. I find myself infectiously waiting for a glimpse of the dismal sun, but instead possessed is my shadow from the moonlight as night has begun. My now mutating silhouette to swell and embody a monolith, which seeps agony, its rain a bubbling storm, with thousands of eyes agaze, spellbound by its stagnancy. The fog enshrouds the sun with a cosmic shame, an ancient faith rebirthed through a patient flame. As above, so below, as within, so without, as the universe, so the soul. As above, so below, as within, so without, as the universe, so the soul. An intoxicating froth spews below its mist, igniting a delicate illumination. The overseers are drugged from a god adrift, from my unforeseen creation. So really, there isn't a huge amount of variation in the lyrics. Quite a lot of it gets repeated quite frequently. But I could not even begin to guess at what it's about. I mean, I'm sure there is something in there. I'm sure there's some meaning behind this. Because the lyrics are well written. And they've used, quite a few, I don't want to say big words, but complicated words that you wouldn't normally put into a piece of music. But I really couldn't even take a guess at what this means. There's a suggestion in the actual track itself of birth or rebirth, even, because there's that guy, like I said, drugged out of his mind in his apartment. He's laying on the floor at one point with dark eyes and not moving. So is that him dying? And then at the end there's the birth of the child. So is that like when he refers to his unexpected, unforeseen creation, should I say, is that like a reincarnation of sorts? He's getting reborn as this newborn child at the end of the video, and because he took his own, it appears that he took his own life within the video, is his creation unforeseen because, taking your own life is seen as an evil act, an unforgivable act, so really he has no right to be recreated. And there's him throughout the video sort of walking through like all these tunnels. Is that him trying to find his way back to the living world, possibly? I honestly have no idea. It's a great piece of music. I thought it sounded really, really good. Like I said, the name Job for a Cowboy just does not do this band any justice. Had this not been suggested to me, I don't think it's a band I ever would have looked at, because the name just doesn't inspire me to check them out. It certainly doesn't shout brutal, frenetic death metal at me. It sounds like... I don't even know what the name sounds like, but it just doesn't inspire me to check the band out, so they're not doing themselves any favours with the name. I'm sure they've got a huge fan base, like I say before when I was talking about the information about the band, they sold 13,000 copies of their first album within the first week, so obviously there is a demand for their music. But for me, the name of the band just doesn't draw me in, so I wonder if there's other people out there similar to me who have not checked out the band because the name doesn't suggest to them what the actual music might be. Because normally if you look at a band's name, you get some sort of idea as to what the music might be. You look at bands like Megadeth. Megadeth, the actual word Megadeth refers to, the death of millions of people from a nuclear explosion. That's what Megadeth means. So in essence, the name of the band suggests that it's going to be possibly political and talking about things like war and stuff like that, which a lot of Megadeth's music does talk about. You look at bands like Decapitated, Cannibal Corpse, Napalm Death, and Death. They sort of give you some sort of idea as to what the band is about. Most of the time, a band's name will suggest what the band itself is about. You do get the odd exception. You get bands like Mr. Bungle. The name of the band there doesn't sort of suggest the kind of music that it's going to be. Although it does suggest that there might be a sort of, not a comedic edge to it, but, there's a maybe not so serious element to it. And let's face it, Mike Patton is not exactly the most sensible person in the world. He's quite a crazy person. So, yeah, I don't know if the name of the band is actually doing them any favours, but the music itself really is great. It sounds great. It's very technical. It's not overly fiddly. I've mentioned before, I don't like overly technical, what I call fret wank music, which is where they make the music so fiddly and so like diddly 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 that it just becomes not an incoherent noise. It just becomes a mess in my mind. It just doesn't work for me. I don't like it when bands try and get too piddly on the fretboard. It might work for some people, it doesn't work for me, but this band has got a sort of nice mix between it. They have a little bit of that fiddly diddly stuff, but for the most part it's good heavy riffs. Like I said, started out sounding a bit thrashy. There's a bit of technical death metal in there, there's a little bit of progressive metal sort of thrown in for good measure. So I like it. I think it sounded really, really good, and I wouldn't say annoyed, but it's kind of galling that I haven't checked this band out before, because, well, yeah, the name of the band just didn't draw me in. I never thought, Job for a Cowboy, that sounds like something that I'd like to listen to. And this is why I did this channel, is so I could discover new music and maybe listen to bands I never would have thought to listen to before. And I have discovered many, many new and interesting bands through this channel, thanks to the suggestions of you lot out there. So, this is more of a condemnation of me sort of judging a band before I've actually heard the music. You know, not intentionally. It's not like I thought, well, I'm definitely not going to listen to that. You know, I haven't sat there and actively thought, no, that band's going to be shite, because, I mean, just look at the name. I haven't thought that. I've just thought, well, the name just doesn't suggest anything to me. You know, it doesn't... It's not a band that I look at the name and go, oh, that sounds interesting. It's just a name, you know, and it's not a very good one at that, in my opinion. But like I said, obviously they are quite popular. You know, they've sold quite a lot of music, and you know, they've been going for quite some time now. And I mean, this track was off their newest album, which was only released, well, this year. So, you know, so it's only, well, it says it was released 2024, so it's been released within the previous month. So yeah, it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one. You know, I like the music. I like the vocal style. Like I said, the vocal style reminded me very much of Danny from Cradle of Filth. And, you know, like I said, it was the way that the lines were constructed, the actual rhythm of the vocals, and the actual vocal performance itself. And, you know, the singer's last name is Davey. And Danny's last name is Davey, I believe. So, interesting. But I'm not going to start spitting conspiracy theories. But, yeah, very interesting. I actually want to go back and check out some of their earlier stuff now, because this has sort of piqued my interest. This has sort of made me go, hold on a second. I've missed out on 20 years of music by this band just because the name of the band never inspired me to check them out. So very, very enlightening, shall we say. But like I said, I couldn't honestly suggest anything about what the song is about other than the very tenuous links that I made before. So I don't know what else I can say about that, so I'll leave that as it is. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please consider giving a like or a subscribe if you're not already, because it really, really would help this channel out. You know, I've been doing this for about 6 years now, give or take, something around that, and only about 2%, less than 2% of people watching my videos are actually subscribed. And as a result, you know, I'm uploading these videos, I'm taking time to record them, edit them, and upload them, and they're not getting suggested to people because people aren't liking or subscribing. And that's a little bit disheartening, because, you know, I do put a lot of effort into it, and I like to think I bring something different than most other reactors do. You know, I like to talk about the actual song itself, and you don't really see that very often in other reactors' videos. So, you know, if you could like and subscribe, it really, really would help me out. It doesn't cost you anything. It takes a fraction of a second, and it would make the biggest difference to me and my channel. But other than that, that's all I've got for you today. Thank you all very, very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.